Welcome. It's wonderful to have you back again at Global Focus today. I'm Reverend Dr. Sharri Johnson, your host, and today we have a twofer. Two really cool people, both of them here at the same time. They are Reverend Dr. Abigail Albert and Reverend Dr. Stephen Albert. And they are just two of my favorite people. I know I say that every week, but it's true. These two are so cool. They do all kinds of really neat stuff. They write books. They have lessons. They do outreach stuff. They are just amazing. And we're going to talk at them first one at a time, and then we'll put them both together and really get you going. So I'm going to start with Dr. Abigail. Tell us what is new and wonderful, and start by telling me about Empowered Women of Faith, because I just love that title.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'll start with that. Empowered Women of Faith was actually originally my doctoral thesis from Emerson Theological University. And afterwards, I asked all the women that I interviewed, and these are women of all different faith traditions, how they got their calling, what was the process, what were the challenges, what were the joys. And so that became a book, and that is now on Amazon. So Empowered Women of Faith. And 10 out of the 12 women said yes to being published publicly. The other two said no. So that was fine. So anyway, so that's my book.
Yay. Well, that's wonderful. I have to get a copy of that for my library.
Sure.
So what's the newest and most exciting thing going on right now besides the new grandbaby?
Well, the newest thing is I am in the process of planning. I'm actually chairing a committee for Interfaith Thanksgiving program, which we're having next week, in fact, a week from today. And so that's been busy planning, coordinating, getting the music and the speakers and the programs and the this and the that. So that's been taking up a lot of my time recently. So that's happening. And there's the flyer. So it will be live streamed, and I apologize, I forgot to send that link. But if anybody wants to contact me personally, I can send them the link. Yeah.
Excellent.
And I think my email will be up here at some point on the border, so they can just take that down.
I think we put it up. And if we didn't, we'll add it.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So now that we've got Dr. Abigail started, Dr. Steve, what's new and exciting with you and your wonderful new book, Evolving Soul?
Well, there's a variety of things going on, but I have to hesitate and stop for a moment, Sharri. I have to thank you. You were so incredible at the Parliament of World Religions when we were setting up the Global New Thought room. You were right there at the beginning. You helped us unlock doors, carry tables, set up displays, and I have to applaud you for your incredible addition to the New Thought movement.
Oh, thank you. It was a joy. It was a bucket list thing for me to be there, and so there wasn't anything I was about to say no to.
Well, having been there for the fourth time, we had expected it to go a little bit smoother than it actually did. The first time we went was in Melbourne, Australia, and we were blown away. I mean, everything was synchronized, and there was things to do, and whenever you expected to go to a different room, there was exactly what you wanted to do in that room, where unfortunately in Chicago was a little less
organized.
Okay.
It just gave us more opportunities to explore.
Oh, absolutely. And that we did.
And the neatest thing was we got to be with people that we hadn't seen for 2-3 years. Mm-hmm. And especially through the COVID years, it was, if you saw them online, that was about it.
Yeah, I was astonished at how many times somebody yelled my name from across the room that I hadn't seen in 5 or 6 years. That was a bonus I hadn't anticipated.
Yeah.
That was our bonus the whole time. So
And it was really neat to have the little room set aside where we could do a meditation every day and know that there was going to be, 10 minutes of silence in the day.
Yeah. So we're just happy to be finished with the Parliament. We came back very, very tired. Took us probably a good week to get back to some degree of normalcy. Is there
Yeah.
normalcy?
no,
It's normal.
no.
It's English. You can't mispronounce.
Oh, okay.
So since then, what have you, I understand that Dr. Abigail has been getting the Thanksgiving program going, but what have you been doing? Have you just been mostly focused on evolving soul?
Yeah. When I wrote my last book, Ignore the No, I told myself and everybody else around that that was going to be it. That was my 20th book. And nobody deserves to write 20 books. I mean, that's ridiculous. And yet God said, we got something else for you to do. So, Evolving Soul came out, and it actually was developed from all of the different belief systems from the different faith groups, and also science, fact, and fiction, and nonfiction. Excuse me. I don't use fiction. I will tell you about my personal experiences many years before I learned about New Thought. I was working with hypnosis, taking rooms of people and going into past lives. Um, and then I found New Thought, and they were doing the same meditative types of things that I was doing. And it was just perfect. And then I met Abigail, and we joined forces, and her religious science and me unity. We combined, and then we found interfaith. After about about 5 years together in the ministry, we began the work with interfaith. And so in fact, I think Abigail is going to talk about our evolution as we got to this point.
Yeah, I'd like to do that before you get into your talk.
Yeah, go ahead, babe.
All righty then. Switch the pictures for us. There we go. Tell us.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm thinking about Steve's Evolving Soul, and it's a beautiful book. So I'm looking forward for all of you to purchasing it. But I thought of my own life, right? And I thought we talked about that. My segue into his book would probably be, the prep work for what he's going to share with you later. And so I looked up the word evolving, right? And I thought, I wonder, what does the dictionary say? And so some of the words that came to me was, develop gradually. You evolve by developing gradually, or you evolve from one thing to the other, whether we're apes to humans or yesterday to today, and then evolving into something. So that's another idea of evolution, or to make different, to change, to alter, to vary things, to convert. And I'm going to share a little bit about that too in my life, and to transform. And I think in New Thought, we love to think about our souls transforming and evolving into a higher consciousness. So there's a lot of words that go along with the idea of evolving and evolution. And I believe that we are constantly evolving. We cannot not be evolving. The universe itself is evolving. And even though we may be at one place, we know tomorrow we're going to be at a totally different place. Like you said, Sharri, same speakers, different talks, different consciousness. It's constantly moving and moving forward in learning and being. And so I've always thought for myself that I am always evolving. I can see myself in the turning points in my life where something happened, something made that change, something pushed, pulled or nudged me into doing something different. And I believe that push, pull, and nudge is really God saying, okay, this is your next step. This is what you're supposed to be doing now. So we start from babyhood to childhood to adulthood. And for myself, I started as a teacher. I loved the idea of teaching, was wonderful to me. And so I became a teacher. My first job was third grade, loved it. It was in Illinois. And I really wanted to stay there and just continue teaching third grade. It was my favorite grade, but God had another plan. I actually got married, moved to California, right? And then in Lompoc, California, I taught fourth, fifth, and sixth grade. Interesting to think that at some point in my life, I said, I don't ever want to teach upper grades. They're, the kids scare me. They're too old, blah, blah, blah. But here I am put into an upper grade team where I will be teaching all the language arts to all the students. Ended up loving it, right? Wanted to stay here forever. Made friends, had a great time. Not going to happen. As circumstances had, we moved to Florida. I taught fourth grade, moved back to Illinois, had some babies, moved back to California. I mean, we were just like on this circle, and nothing ever stayed the same. It's the same. And I had to evolve along with the changes in my life. So back in California, I began substitute teaching for a while. And that was another thing I said, okay, God, I never want to substitute teach, right? However, where we live, God had planted us right next to a family whose the wife was a substitute teacher. She gave me all the things to know and do. And so for 3 years, I ended up subbing, and I loved it. And then they invited me to be a full-time kindergarten teacher, which my first response was, oh, no, I don't want to do kindergarten. No, God, nope, that's not going to happen. But you know what? I did kindergarten. I did kindergarten first grade for 12 years. So I feel like my soul has continually evolved as, because you have to learn something. If there's something you're afraid of, you need to step into it and realize without fear that you can do something, do that job, which I learned through teaching. And then I entered the ministry, and that too was just a surprise because I got a divorce, church hunting, and I finally said, you know what, God, I don't want to look for a church anymore. I'm done. And this was in different Christian denominations, and they're all beautiful and everything, but they weren't aligning with what I was believing. And so I needed to find a place that I could align with, and I hadn't found it. So I just said to God, I'm never stepping into a church again, right? Well, God laughs. And so he nudged and pushed and pulled me again. And I got a little card in the mail that week inviting me to attend a reincarnation seminar. Well, I was very interested in reincarnation, so I went. I like the people here. I said, well, what is this? It's, all of a sudden I realized it's a religious science church. What's that? So I went back on Sunday to get a little more information. And I sat there and I listened to my minister, Dr. Winella Evans. And there she was talking to me as if I was the only one in the room. I thought, oh my gosh, this is my tribe. This is my home. And so it was a small church. And so she always encouraged me to find, go to other New Thought churches, get a bigger audience, so I have a better understanding. So one year I went to a Silmar. That's a conference put on by one of the religious science denominations. And I loved it. But one of the evenings, I was able to pick a table to sit at wherever I wanted to. Normally, you have a table assigned to you. So we had our food and all the people sitting around the table. And I started eating my dinner. And all of a sudden, and I did not see this before. So I think it was like God put a little blinder in my eye until this particular moment. There was a sign that said, minister's table only. And I looked around and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm sitting with a bunch of ministers. And then I said out loud, I am not supposed to be here. Well, they were all smiling they were fine with me sitting there. And the lady next to me, sweet lady, I don't know who she is, but she put her hand on my arm and she said, honey, you are always in the right place at the right time. And then she looked at the sign and she looked at me and she said, that's your future. And I just was so shocked that I left the table. I started walking down the beach in Pacific Grove, saying no to God again, right? I can't, God, what are you thinking? I can't do this. Anyway, I was finally resolved with, I'm just too tired to think about it. So when I got back home, I told my minister, Dr. Winella, and she looked at me and laughed. She says, I knew it. Let's get you into some practitioner courses. So there was my evolution from teaching to ministry. I'm still teaching, but I'm going through all the ministry process with practitioner and ministerial training, and was ordained in 2000. And from there, I had met Steve, and our church started off as a child-centered church because that's what I was most familiar with. Evolved into what we called the Family Spiritual Center. And then we were now living in Poway, California, right? A city outside of San Diego. And Steve and I were married, and we were down here starting our church in Poway. And we saw a little sign and a little ad in the paper saying the Baha'is are putting on a World Religion Day. And if you're interested in helping us promote this, come join us at this restaurant. Steve and I looked at each other and said, what's a Baha'i? So we said, we better go. So we went. Wonderful people, loved them, still dear friends of ours. So the lady in charge asked me to speak, which I did. And we did this for 2 years. And after the second year, all the speakers said, we need to do this more often. And we need to form something together. So let's meet and see what comes up. So we met at our church, and these people were the founders of the Poway Interfaith team. And that's the team that right now I'm executive director of. We have been in existence since 2006. And so you can see, long story short, how the evolution happened in my life and the different turning points where things that I thought I never want to do, but God said, yes, you are. And so being open and receptive to something new just increases awareness, increases understanding, increases your evolution of your soul. And so right now we are New Thought ministers doing interfaith work. Very happy to have been participants in the 4 different Parliament of World Religions, the North American Interfaith Network, which we put on a conference in 2017, Association for Global New Thought, United Religions Initiative. So we've just expanded and grown with every single day and year that has gone by. And never would I thought when I started teaching 3rd grade, that first year out, that I would be here so many years later. But that's what happens because our soul is constantly evolving. And so with that, I'm going to pass this idea on to Steve.
Oh, wait, I want to say something first.
Sure.
When I ask someone to come on, I always ask them, to give me a bio. And there was one line in Steve's bio about his book that I just absolutely love. He said that he said earlier that he said, no, I'm done. I'm not going to write any more books. And God said, oh, yeah, you are. And what he says is that the impetus for this book is that it seemed to him like an aha moment where people say, why didn't I think of that? And that has been what I call a God wink in my life for the last 50 years at least, every time I turn around, because whenever I go, why didn't I think of that? I know something new is fixing to happen right now. So now, Steve, you can tell him what I'm talking about.
Well, with all the work that I've done with past lives and hypnosis and looking at the different religions and what they believe about the soul and how do we come into this lifetime and how do we leave it, and after we leave it, do we ever come back? what I was trying to really get a handle on was, is there a real process? Is there a organized belief that not only do we come back, but I believe what I've proven in the book is that we plan to come back. We plan to extend the things that we have been involved with already. And maybe the best example right now, I wasn't going to do it now, but if we could play that video, I don't know.
Hold on. There we go.
All right.
彈多次 first time 就有5000分，
He's 4 years old.
俾啲表情啊！
你看了也是一心的。
哇！收拾心情，收拾心情。好激昂㗎，好激昂嘅，知唔知啊？每一下要撞爛啲石頭。
Yeah.
Those little tiny fingers and that great big piano.
You see, as what I've said in the book, and I believe I've proven it through different stories, the book is filled with stories and analogies and just interesting things that make you go, wow, what if? That 4-year-old boy, I believe, was playing the piano in a previous lifetime and wasn't finished doing what he was supposed to do. And so he is back now with the same talents and the same abilities as he had previously. Wow. Here's where I come from. I was born in a Jewish family, bar mitzvah, the whole bit. I wanted to study different religions, so I left the synagogue, and I was told that I wasn't college material. So I got 3 college degrees and the PhD. And then I got involved with psychology, and then I got involved with the reincarnation and with New Thought, and I studied things that you wouldn't believe. It's called meditation. Maybe you've heard that kind of thing. Affirmative prayer. Just weird stuff like that. And my family, my father he didn't finish high school. My mother never went to college. Here I am with all these degrees and all these things, and there is absolutely no way that at 15 could I have planned out my life to believe that I was going to become what I have become. In the book, I put out a process where wherever you are in life, you can begin to plan out your next life. Now, let me say that again, because there's at least one person listening that says, what the
Be nice.
The idea of knowing what you want. See, we pre-plan everything. I mean, if you think about it, when we're 15, what do we do at 15? We begin to pre-plan our driving a car. In our minds, we are driving a car. Give me the keys. I want to go. I plan it out. If we're going to go to college, we pre-plan what we're going to be, what we're going to do, what we're going to study. We get married, we pre-plan our children, our house, how we're going to live. Even if we go on a vacation, if you take a vacation, you don't, right? You pre-plan the hotel, and you pre-plan your direction, and you pre-plan everything else. What do you think? Why would you think that the evolution of us going through childhood, teenagehood, all those other hoods, why do you think it would stop at death? We are in a constant state of evolution. And in the book, I go back to the beginning of time where elements that existed in the cosmos exist within each one of our bodies today. So this evolution has been going on since the very beginning. Our soul has evolved from the earliest stages to where we are now. And as Abigail said, and that changed, and then that changed. And I thought I was going to do this, but God had another plan. The soul leads us to where we're supposed to be. And if we're not finished when, quote, death comes, or whatever means, then we have to continue that evolution the next life. And that's what the book's about. It's evolving soul. And I'm also suggesting that we never settle for just good. We settle for excellence. We settle for, God, you've set up this magnificent environment in so many different ways that we experience. Why can't I have this or something better? So that's kind of what the book's about. And I ask the reader to not just think about, well, in the future, I'd like to be a doctor. Very nice. What virtues do you want to live by? What things in your life really mean a lot? The Dalai Lama said, my religion is kindness. Can you add in your next life that you want to be kind?
So what I'm hearing you say is that planning forward is not so much choosing what you want to do for a living, but what you want to be as a soul.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, I'll have an order of that. Thank you very much.
In all the years that I did, almost 25 years or so, that I did past life regressions, both individually and in groups of people, no one had ever come up with, oh, I used to be George Washington, or I used to be, an actor, actress, historian, whatever. And yet I know that I got into New Thought because I had done it before. Here I am teaching New Thought principles for about 20 years before I found New Thought. I had my family had no idea what it was about. I was Jewish, so my mother said I can't be a minister. No. And so the fact that I got ordained wasn't good enough by her standards, for me to even do the wedding for my brother. So I did weddings for everybody else. The beauty of it all is that it's not that it just doesn't end and maybe you go to heaven or hell, depending whether you've been good or bad, or believed in a particular avatar. But when you think of all the things that people have come up with, wow, Thomas Edison, he creates a light bulb. There's no such thing as a light bulb. There's no vocabulary for a light bulb. And yet, Thomas Edison creates a light bulb. We take it for granted now. It's everywhere, right? But when he came up with it, there was nothing. I always laugh about it. They say the atom. You can't see the atom. And yet John Dalton discovered it.
Well, and it's not,
atom?
you just used a magic word. Okay. None of us invents anything. None of us creates anything. We discover what already exists in the mind of God that has come through us, and we find a way to give it form. I mean, hundreds of years ago, Leonardo da Vinci invented the helicopter.
Yeah.
It took several hundred years for Sikorsky to come along and actually make it work, but the idea was always there. So I can't wait to read your book.
And I was very fortunate that it.
And it's ready.
I thought it was going to be.
That's
what it was going to be published at the end of November, and they published it last week. So I'm excited.
That's marvelous. So, what's next? Because I'm pretty sure you have learned your lesson about saying that's the end of that. So I want each of you to tell me what's next. What's the new thing looming on your horizon?
It seems that every time I finish something, I actually get a little depressed. I have to admit that. I'm not good when it comes to having nothing to do. And I had thought actually 3 books ago that I was finished writing. And one after the next. But I like to integrate everything from other religions so that you get the different perspectives and actually find out how similar we all are.
Well, one of my all-time favorite Ernest Holmes quotes is that there isn't, and this is not a direct quote, I'm paraphrasing, but he said there's a golden thread of truth that runs through all faith traditions, and our job as spiritual seekers is to find those threads and weave them together into a thread that could support any student, that could support any soul. And that's what you're talking about. And I think there couldn't be a higher goal than that.
And let me interject here, Sharri, because that just brought to mind when we first had our first Interfaith Summer Nights with the Poway Interfaith team. We had a person from a different tradition speak once a week for about 6 to 8 weeks. And so this was the first time I was really hearing the fullness of their beliefs, and the Hindus, the Sikhs, and a Buddhist. So I'm sitting there with Steve, and he says his arm is still hurting. I would nudge him gently, Steve, nudge him and say,
it wasn't gently, it was
I must be Hindu. I believe what they're saying. And the next week, I must be Buddhist. I believe what they're saying. And each week, I was really resonating with that commonality of all religions, like you had mentioned, Sherry, that golden thread of truth. It's like there is a hub at the center of the wheel, and all the spokes are the different traditions. But in the center is love, compassion, appreciation, goodness, service, be good to your fellow man. I mean, it's all there.
It
Every
is.
single religion, it's there. How you practice to pray to God, that's part of the tradition of the religion. But the essence of every religion is the same. And that's what I was resonating with every single week. And it was just mind blowing. It was like, and I thought, this is where I want to do my work. And so, it's still remaining that New Thought minister, because I get to bring New Thought to the table with all the other traditions. They get to hear what I believe as I'm hearing what they believe. And we all find our commonalities, and it becomes this tremendous sense of friendship that we develop. And we've developed over the years. We've known these people since 2006 and 5, even with the World Religion Day. So it's really important. And my heart goes out, because what I would like to see next is that more people pick up on this, that we can bring it out even farther into the community, so that when they realize that, in New Thought, we say we look into the face of God when we see each other. If people could just realize that when you look into another person's eyes, you're seeing a reflection of God coming back to you. How can you hurt that other person when you see God in that person? And if we could just have this consciousness rising, where all the leaders in the world see this, they see the person in the other country leader as a spark of God, the divine. That is my prayer, and I know in truth that it will come about at some point, because it has to. That's our evolution.
Yep.
That's where we're heading.
And
We're heading.
I get to give myself a little credit now, because in a few weeks, I belong to the Greater Kansas City Interfaith Council.
Great.
And when we have our monthly meeting, it's a 2-hour meeting, and the first hour is faith sharing from some tradition, and then the second hour is the actual business medium. And because I nagged him and gave him your books, so is it January that y'all are going to be doing the faith sharing part? I think. She hasn't contacted you yet, has she? You're being invited to come in by Zoom and do the faith, do an hour-long presentation.
Oh, no, we haven't been invited yet. Yeah.
Well, it's the second Monday in January, so just mark that down, and I will nag her when I see her on Sunday, because I'm waiting. I think it is that I believe interfaith is the absolute goal of evolution.
Yeah, I do.
To me, because interfaith doesn't mean we all become one tradition. It means we all recognize and honor all traditions.
Yes.
And the thing that made the most difference to me at the Parliament, we spend all of our time talking about how we're alike instead of how we're different.
Yeah.
And that's what interfaith is about to me, is talking about how we're alike instead of how we're different.
And sometimes when people ask us that have not really explored the idea of interfaith, they say, well, isn't it just vanilla soup? I said, no, you're not changing your religion for any reason. You are, in fact, one of our ministers, God bless him, he has made his transition, but he used to say, the deeper I learn about you, the deeper I go into mine, because if I'm going to share, I need to really know my own tradition so that I can share it with you. And so that's the whole idea. In fact, what you said, Sherry, at our a year ago, what we did after our meetings is we had a person from a different tradition share their faith. This past year, we have done kind of a living room conversations after the meeting. and took a topic. And so everyone contributed what not only their faith thought, but maybe what they personally thought about that topic. So there is always a conversation with people of all the different faith traditions after the meeting, because that's how we become friends. We know one another. We may not always agree, and that's okay.
We are not required to agree. We are only required to respect.
Respect and listen. Listen and respect. Absolutely. And just applaud them, because they're seeking their evolution as well as I am seeking my evolution. And because thank you, God, God brought us together. And I think that this is really creating heaven on earth. When we recognize everybody's true worth, whatever culture, ethnicity, religion, that we just recognize, here's my fellow God being, and God being God in that person, and it looks different than me, and I'm okay with it. And that is our evolution as humanity, I believe, has to happen, is happening right now, because your interfaith group is working on it, our interfaith group, and there's thousands of interfaith groups we're not even aware of. Luckily, Steve has some kind of a corner of the World Interfaith Network where there's many, many, many different global interfaith groups have their website and email address there so people can get in touch with them. So we're working towards that. We're working towards that higher goal, I think, is what you asked. As far as the local goal, we're still doing what we're doing, only trying to do it better.
Well, I'm pretty sure you just answered the first of my 4 questions. So I'm going to see if Reverend Dr. Steve has anything he wants to add to that. I can't imagine what it would be, but I got to give him the opportunity. So how does what y'all do? How does All Faith Center? How does the Reverend Dr.s Albert approach, enhance, encourage, develop conscious evolution?
I have something that might tie into that. Many of the books that I did in the past had a interfaith blanket on it. You could feel the interfaith. This new book has the interfaith understanding, but at the same time, it's on a topic that everyone in the world is involved with, and that is death and what happens after death. And I've gotten already emails from people who are of many different religions, not New Thought, that have said to me, now I understand why. I've had people who have said, my 4, and here's, I want not to give you all the stories that are in the book, but my children talk about their past life. They wake up in dreams, from dreams going, this is not my name. My dog was hit by a car. On and on, where the people say, how am I supposed to understand and reason this out with them when I don't know what it's all about? Well, the fact is, the soul of that child experienced that past life, experienced the good, the bad, whatever. And they haven't blocked it out yet. And it doesn't matter if you're Muslim or Jewish or Buddhist or Christian or any faith. If you're alive, you have had soul experiences that have changed the way you do things in life. When I had my 2003 stroke, took the whole left side of my body. I lost everything on the left side. And the doctors told me that as good as I was going to get in 6 months was probably as good as I was ever going to be. I said, bullshit. That's a technical term.
That's a medical term. Yeah.
It's a medical term. And I was getting better even after a year and even after 2 years. So for people to tell you that you can't do it, or you can't be well, or you can't reach the things that your body is saying, I want to evolve into a better whatever. You know, a lot of us grew up in families that our parents thought we were going to take over the business when they were finished, right? I know so many people growing up that wanted to put "and Sons" after the name of the store. Well, when the son doesn't want to do that, when the child wants to grow into something else, those are the stories of people who say, I wasn't going to be a butcher. I wasn't going to be a tailor. I wasn't going to be a businessman. I was going to be a doctor. I was going to be a teacher. I was going to be. Why? Because your soul is doing it. And to say what my soul's going to do tomorrow, I can't I can't wait to find out what it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to just ease right on into the next question because it sounds very much the same, even though it's not. And you can answer. You can start, and then Abigail can finish if there's something she wants to add. So you can take turns. And here's the question: is same kind of question. How does what you do, all faith center, interfaith power, all of the things that you do, and all of the things that you are, how does that contribute to unveil, reveal, establish, promote? Pick your own verb. World peace.
What was the last thing again? Peace?
World peace.
Oh, world peace. Okay.
World peace.
You know, every now and then people ask that type of question, and I tell them what my desire is. My desire is to read the paper in the morning and not hear about the killing. To not have, especially with children, not have children dying for reasons that have no bearing on the world, really, only on someone's personal power. I want to be able to say something to the world, and I look forward to venues that will allow someone who has not thought about it before say, wow, I never thought about it that way. So that's my direction, is to touch somebody who has not thought about it that way.
Okay, I'd like to add, I've thought about this. In fact, we've even spoken on this on occasion. You know, the idea of world peace seems just almost unimaginable right now. So my thought is, and you know, everybody wants peace, but nobody really can put their finger on it. You know, it's like this big, huge bubble in the sky. My thought is, what if we taught everybody, like you said, Sherri, you mentioned, or Steve, that the Dalai Lama's religion is kindness. Everybody can get their mind around the idea of being kind. You know, that to me that has to come before peace of any sort. That we need to be kind to one another. You have a problem, a conflict with somebody, how are you going to get peace? Somebody needs to be kind and say, okay, I'm sorry. What can I do to make you feel better? How can I make this so that we both have a win-win? How can we be kind here in the situation? And if everybody focused on how can I make conflict be kind? How can I be kind in a conflict? That, I think, is the precursor, something like that, to peace.
Yeah.
You have to be kind. You can be kind to your neighbor. You can be kind to the person at the store. You don't have to scowl in line if there's a long line and the poor people up front are trying to handle everybody, and then you get up there and you can be kind, because we know in New Thought what you put out comes back. So the kinder you are in these tense situations, that will just, like the ripple on the water, it's just going to go out. And, when we're kind, somebody else is kind to the next person, So pay it forward. So let's pay kindness forward. That's my answer to it. Let's pay kindness forward.
I'll have an order of that too.
Okay, there you go.
Here's the third question. And you're going to have to, you probably will need to answer this one separately too, even though your answers will be related, because it is 10 years from now, with the proviso that every single aspect of your life, every detail, every relationship, every event, every idea, every thought, every occurrence goes exactly the way you want it to go. What does All Faith Center look like then? What does Steve and Abigail look like then?
My background, one of those college degrees is in architecture. And I was an architect for 25 years before I got into the ministry. And one of the things that Abigail and I have always hoped for was that we would develop this center that would be multi-faith center that anyone could use, that everyone would be attracted to, et cetera, et cetera. To think about all the things that have gone on in the world in the last few years. Financially, it probably would never have worked. But looking ahead 10 years from now, I am willing to accept the $1 billion from one of our billionaires and to develop the floor plans that I already have put out. I've got them here on the desk, and start an interfaith, all faith center.
Oh, hey. And
You
is
know
it
any billionaires, Sharri? You have any billionaire friends?
not that I'm aware of, but I'll let you know if someone shows up.
Okay.
And Abigail, anything you want to add to that?
Well, if I'm looking at 10 years from now, and what you had said, if everything goes according to plan, I think my first response would be, thank you, God. What else can I say?
Yeah.
But in 10 years, I know in my heart, as we are evolving, things will change. And I'm always evolving into something greater and better. So in 10 years, however that looks, greater, better, different, highs, lows, sad, happy, whatever those 10 years evolve into, I'm still going to say, thank you, God.
Okay, here's the last question. Will you come back?
Of course.
The next opening I have is September 24th of next year. Can I plug in?
September what?
24th.
24. That's a Tuesday?
That's the fourth Tuesday in September of next year.
I'm pretty sure we're good.
Yay! Okay.
Down.
We are good to go. I want to say thank you again so much for coming. It's always great to have you here. I love you both so much. But this was a really great interview. And I want to let all the folks out there know that we have another real winner coming up next week, because our guest next week is Reverend Dr. Charles Geddes from Mind Your Own Becoming. You don't want to miss it. He is so cool. Thank you so much. Have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hepperland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center, Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, La Mesa, Satya Center, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for making New Thought Media Network a place to be. Please come be you. And remember, like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.
Amazing, amazing, you will do amazing